Good morning, dear colleagues. Today's theme is composition of spinal nerve, posterior branches of the spinal nerves. First of all, I'd like to demonstrate you this picture from famous anatomical atlas of Синельников Raphael Dmitrievich. And here we can see the principles of composition of spinal nerve. What can we see here? First of all, inside of vertebra there is a spinal cord. Here it is one segment of spinal cord which is cutted transversely, and so we can see the nerves which is close to this spine and segment of spinal cord. First of all, I'd like to demonstrate to you this canal which is situated between two vertebrae. This of blue color bone canal is foramen intervertebrale. Foramen intervertebrale. It contains ganglion spinale. Ganglion spinale here. Ganglion spinale, you know, it is a place where sensory or afferent neurons are situated, and we can distinguish it because it's more thick part of the nerve fiber. Then continue. I'd like to demonstrate with this yellow cylinder that in foramen intervertebrale we can find a nerve which is the result of connections of two radices, radix spinalis anterior and radix spinalis posterior. This is number 6, truncus nervi spinalis. So, truncus nervi spinalis, what is it? It's a result of connection of two radices, radix spinalis anterior and posterior, and it's very short part of peripheral nervous system which is situated in foramen intervertebrale. So after two radices were connected, so this next part of nerve named truncus nervi spinalis. It's a question here. How can we distinguish where is anterior radix and where is posterior radix? First of all, because here corpus vertebrae, so this is anterior surface of the spine, and second, that this more thick part which is ganglion spinale, this thick part is part of radix posterior. Radix spinalis posterior has this thick place which named ganglion spinale. So now we can see that after passing through foramen intervertebrale, the next part of nerve gives branches, and one of them is branch number 4, which is ramus dorsalis or ramus posterior nervi spinalis. So spinal nerve gives ramus dorsalis, which is quite thin, and number 5, radix ramus ventralis or ramus anterior, which is quite thick. So most important information now is that nervus spinalis, in those places where it lead where it leave the foramen intervertebrale, nervus spinalis here divides into 2 rami. Ramus dorsalis, which is thin, and ramus ventralis, which is thick. And besides this thickness or thinness, there is very important difference between these rami. Ramus dorsalis do not form plexuses, but ramus ventralis do form plexuses. So each spinal nerve from each spinal segment they give 2 branches, ramus dorsalis and ramus ventralis. And ramus dorsalis do not form plexus, and ramus ventralis do form plexuses. It's feature of spinal nerves that they do not pass parallelly, but they connect with each other, forming plexuses. And we know cervical plexus, brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, and sacrococcygeal plexus. So there are 4 plexuses, and each of them are forming by the ramus ventralis of spinal nerve. And ramus dorsalis do not form plexuses, and therefore they goes parallelly to each other and practically don't contact with each other. So such kind of segmental innervation is characteristic of back, and both superficial structures and skin of back and muscles are innervated by parallelly passing dorsal rami or ramus dorsalis, ramus posterior of spinal nerve. So we finished this first picture, and now the next composition of spinal nerve. Here it is, a picture which we should draw together, and let's begin from the beginning, from the spinal cord. So here it is, peripheral section of spinal cord. I hope you can recognize the anterior horn. So here it is, the anterior surface of spinal cord. Posterior horn, which is more thin, and anterior more thick. And between anterior and posterior horns, we can find intermediate horn, which is situated only in thoracolumbar part of the spinal cord. So we have distinguished the gray matter as a butterfly and a white matter which surround the gray matter. And here they are, the sulci through which the radices pass through to form spinal nerve. And now with number 1, I'd like to demonstrate ganglion sensorium nervi spinalis. Or we can say simply ganglion spinalis, ganglion sensorium nervi spinalis or ganglion spinalis. We know that it contains sensitive or afferent neurons. So inside of it, there are a lot of sensitive neurons. The fibers from these neurons goes into the direction of spinal cord and forms this number 2, radix posterior or radix sensoria. This radix posterior is completely sensitive. It contains afferent fibers, only afferent fibers. And that's why we use this blue color, because direction of the impulses is centripetal. It means inside, inward to the spinal cord, and function of these fibers is sensitive. Then I use number 3. What is it? It's radix anterior. You can see that it's of red color. It means motor function of this radix. So radix anterior is efferent according to direction of nerve impulses, but we can't say that it's completely motor, because beside of motor fibers which innervate the skeletal muscles, inside of it we can find also vegetative fibers. And now I use green color to demonstrate you an efferent neuron which is placed inside of the intermediate horn. Its nucleus intermedio lateralis, from which these green fibers, preganglionic efferent vegetative fibers, also goes outward of spinal cord. So this number 3, radix anterior, it contains not only red fibers, motor fibers, but also green. It means preganglionic vegetative fibers. So it's written here that radix anterior is mixed because it contains two types of nerve fibers: vegetative, preganglionic, efferent, and motor for skeletal muscles. Now we can draw foramen intervertebrale. We can say that it's bones canal through which nerve fibers leave the spinal canal, canalis spinalis, and becomes peripherally located. Foramen intervertebrale, we use the sign of cylinder to demonstrate that these structures are situated inside of foramen vertebralis. Both ganglion spinale number 1 and also radix posterior and radix anterior. And then, very interesting detail. Do you see? From ganglion spinale, peripheral fiber of blue color, it means sensitive, it's dendrite of afferent neurons. It connects with preganglionic and motor fibers. These of three colors, green, red, and blue, goes together, close to each other. Before, inside of the spinal canal, we can see that they are parallel to each other but not contacts to each other. And after foramen intervertebrale, after peripherally, distally, according to foramen intervertebrale, we can find that all these three types of fibers are connected to each other. So it's clear that this structure is new structure. It's truncus nervi spinalis. Truncus, like for tree we use this term, trunk, which is the main stem from which branches will pass into different directions. So the same here. Truncus nervi spinalis is a new structure where we first time use this term nervus spinalis. Here, inside of spinal canal, there wasn't nervus spinalis. They were not nervi spinales. They were only radix dorsalis and radix ventralis. But after leaving the foramen intervertebrale, we can find truncus nervi spinalis. If this truncus nervi spinalis again is mixed, there are several different types of nerve fibers. And now, for us, is very crucial to understand what kinds of branches truncus nervi spinalis or nervus spinalis shall give. First of all, we draw the branch named as RCA. RCA. It's abbreviation from first letters of this term, ramus communicans albus. It's ramus communicans albus. May I ask you a question? What kind of fibers contains ramus communicans albus? I hope you can answer the same, like here in parentheses, that preganglionic vegetative fibers. Preganglionic vegetative fibers of green color, like everywhere in this picture, we use this color for preganglionic fibers. It's interesting that ramus communicans albus we can find not everywhere, not in every segment of spinal cord, but only in so named thoracolumbar region, from 8th cervical to 2nd lumbar. And then we use number 4, demonstration of ganglion trunci sympatici. Ganglion trunci sympatici. Please remember the lecture according to the vegetative nerve system. We said that there are 3 types of vegetative ganglia. And first of it's ganglia trunci sympatici. Here it is, one of these. So, ramus communicans albus leads to ganglion trunci sympatici. And then, after it, we can find so named ramus communicans grisius. Ramus communicans grisius. It contains postganglionic vegetative fibers. Ramus communicans grisius contains postganglionic vegetative fibers. It's interesting that this ganglion trunci sympatici, we can say, is hung on these 2 branches, ramus communicans albus, RCA, and ramus communicans grisius, RCG. We can find these type of fibers, ramus communicans grisius, everywhere. That means from first cervical till to coccygeal segments. So it's important that ramus communicans albus we can find only in thoracolumbar segments, but ramus communicans griseus everywhere in all segments of spinal cord. And then we can draw that truncus nervi spinalis divides into another three types of fibers. 1, 2, 3. What they are? First of all, ramus anterior. Ramus anterior. We can find here that ramus anterior is mixed. There are three types of colors inside of it. There are three types of fibers inside of it. Sensitive, motor, somatomotor of red color for innervation of skeletal muscles, and vegetative, sometimes pre, sometimes post-ganglionic for innervation of smooth muscles and also glands. This ramus anterior we already know with you. It will be connects from different segments to form a plexuses. Cervical plexus, brachial plexus, lumbar plexus, and sacrococcygeal plexus. 4 plexuses of spinal nerves are organized, are composed from only rami anterior. Then ramus posterior. Ramus posterior also has 3 types of fibers. The same, but nevertheless, we already knew that ramus posterior is thinner than ramus anterior, which is thicker. And ramus posterior do not form any plexuses. Rami posteriores, they go parallelly to each other and don't connect with each other to form a plexus. And third ramus is this interesting one. You can see that this third ramus is ramus meningeus. Ramus meningeus or ramus recurrens. Recurrence, what does it mean? It returns back to internal part of spine, that means in spinal canal, vertebral canal, canalis vertebralis. So it returns back to the vertebral canal. And these two names, which are the synonyms, ramus meningeus means that it will